Okay, guys, this is Rise of Mass Democracy Part 4. This is the birth of Texas. So, Mexico actually had gotten control of all of that area with their independence over Spain. So, after they did that in 1823, they started giving land grants because it was very sparsely occupied, and they really wanted, they can't make any money off the land if there aren't any people there. So they give Americans right to have property in Texas, and Stephen Austin gets a huge land grant. And he invites other families, and it grows and grows, and pretty soon you've got lots and lots of Americans that are living in this Texas territory. Now, it goes pretty well for a while, and then in 1835, a guy named Santa Anna takes control. He is the dictator of the new leader of Mexico. And they start clashing over things like slavery, immigration, and so forth. Basically, they say that if you are there, you have to be a Catholic, no more slavery, and you have to pledge allegiance basically to Mexico. So they're rebelling about that. They're pretty independent people, and they've had things pretty much their own way. And Santa Anna is going to put down this rebellion army. Texans, in response to this, they declare their independence. They said, we don't want to be part of Mexico. And Sam Houston is the leader, and he actually tried to negotiate first, and he is going to not be treated kindly by Santa Anna, and they declare independence. Santa Anna then says, no way. And he comes into Texas with a large army. He's going to kill 342 Texans at Goliad, and they had surrendered. They'd thrown their hands up into the air, and he massacred them. Then he goes to San Antonio, and you've all heard about the Alamo. There's a 13-day siege. The Texans are vastly outnumbered, and ultimately it's like 3,000 Mexican troops to 200 Texans at the Alamo, and they're surrounded. After 13 days, they attack, and the Texans do a pretty good job, but they are overrun, and he is going to kill all the Americans. And Houston, after this Alamo and Goliad, more and more volunteers pour in to join this Texas Revolution. And Sam Houston is retreating. So that is the speech he gave. He is retreating, but what he's really doing is trying to draw Santa Anna into the perfect place for this. The place is San Jacinto, just north of Houston. And basically Santa Anna, he is supposedly dallying with a young woman. He has his troops set up camp. He's got a river on the back. He's got a wooded area on the other area. He's got no place to go if attacked, and he is attacked. 18 minutes this battle takes. Santa Anna actually tries to disguise himself. He puts on the coat of a private, but this Santa Anna had been so arrogant that he had demanded such discipline from his troops that as he's marching with this private's coat on so he won't get captured, they start saluting him, and he's outed by his own guys. Now, the Texans want to string him up after what he's done. Sam Houston, he's been shot in the foot. You see him kind of leaning against a tree here. And Sam Houston says, no. Sam Houston says, wait a minute. Santa Anna is not only the general, he is the leader of Mexico, and he can sign over Texas. So that is what they do. They say, in exchange for your life, give us Texas, give us our Texas independence, and we'll let you go. So Santa Anna is forced to recognize the Rio Grande as Texas's southern border. He signs over Texas and grants Texas independence. Now, the United States was supposed to be neutral through all of this. However, a lot of Americans had gone in out from Ohio. They'd sent in 2 cannon to help, the twin sisters, to help with the battle. So America was behind this all the way. So they wanted recognition from the United States, and President Jackson is going to wait and wait and wait until the day before he leaves office, and he recognizes Texas as a territory. Actually, as an independent republic. Texas then is going to petition to be annexed, but again, we're looking at that slave state, free state issue, and Sam Houston will become the first president of the Republic of Texas. So the election of 1836, remember Jackson has put Van Buren as his vice president, and Clay and Calhoun are going to join to oppose his candidacy. This is going to evolve into the Whigs versus the Democrats, and the supporters of Clay's American system and states' writers and larger northern industrialists are actually going to join in with the Whig Party against Van Buren. The anti-Masonic Party, remember, that had run in 1832, they are also going to join in with the Whigs. So their candidate is going to be the war hero of 1812 and the fellow that defeated Tecumseh, William Henry Harrison. And Van Buren, the little magician, former vice president, is going to be the Democratic nominee. And he was handpicked by Jackson to be the successor. Van Buren is handily going to defeat Harrison, 170 to 173. But what he also is inheriting is an imminent catastrophe. This is the election map. You can see that Van Buren kind of split it all over the place. He got most of the South and Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York. So he's going to win the Electoral College rather handily, although he really only gets 51% of the popular vote. They split it up a little bit. You've got 3 Whig candidates and the bad boy state, South Carolina, running as an independent. Here he is, Martin Van Buren, the little magician, and he is the first president from the state. You can see he is ranked not real high. Let me see, I can't even find him here. There he is, 34th. So he is considered a very poor president. Now, a lot of that is not his fault because he did inherit a horrible economy. The bank is gone. He's got a lot of stuff going on that really wasn't his fault. Going to be facing a Whig Congress, and they are going to actually dominate politics for a while, and this is a real struggle for him. So if you look, this is the platform of the Whigs versus the Democrats. The Democrats, more common people, anti-monopoly, more states' rights. And then your Whigs, they're the northern industrialists with the Clay. They got Clay behind them. They want to get rid of the spoils system. They're angry at Jackson's stance on nullification. They picked up that third party with the anti-Masonics, and they want to use the national government to solve some of society's problems. So they're looking at some of the reform that we're going to talk about in a second. Okay. I got piled up here. Okay. And let's causes. Results. Here we go. Factories closed and unemployment soared. Went up to about 15.6. Okay, so anything President Van Buren wanted to do was shot down in Congress because the Whigs controlled Congress. He wanted expansion of the bank credit, tariffs, federal subsidies. They said no. Limited government philosophy. So you can see this is showing the federal land sales in southern states and how it plummeted. It was very high in 1835-36, and boom, 1837 went way down. Prices also are going to go down. So this is blaming the Democrats for this depression, and you can see people that are in misery here, patches. You get drunks over here on the left. You've got a woman that's lying on the ground, just with her child lying down there. All these things going on. I'm not sure what the glory hat in the middle actually means, but you see the balloon going down in flames in the back. So with the situation. So they're going to pass something called the Treasury Bill of 1840, or the Divorce Bill. And this is actually divorcing the government from banks altogether. And the results are that the funds are going to be kept in a treasury. It's separate from regular banks, but this is going to limit loans. This can be repealed by the Whigs the next year when they won the presidency. So this was a temporary situation. And then when the Democrats get back in 1846, it's going to be put back into effect. So back in 1840, because of the horrible economy, Van Buren will run against Harrison again, and Harrison is going to thump him 234-60. And this is another mass turnout, even more than when Jackson had run. And when we approaching like 80% of all the eligible voters. Okay, this is the popular vote. You can see we are now approaching over 2 million voters, and the electoral college vote was significantly 234-260. So even though it was 53% to 47%, it still was a real thumping in the electoral college. This also had a bunch of silly campaigns, songs, Log Cabin and Hard Cider. They said that William Henry Harrison was a regular guy in a log cabin, which was totally untrue. And we have another third party emerged called the Liberty Party, and it didn't have a whole lot of effect. It was it's gonna merge and be part of the Republican Party. They do not want any more slavery in any more states. So this is showing William Henry Harrison as this regular person, farmer, and he actually had been very wealthy. He actually was more of a champagne drinker than a log cabin hard cider drinker. So hard row to hoe. This is how do we fix the economy? How do we get this economy rolling again? And they're saying that this is the way to do it. The term "okay" actually was New York. Okay, he was from Kinderhook, New York, and so that's more card. So this is the new democracy. This is just a mnemonic that you might want to use.
A national hero or public enemy number one? Historical figures are often controversial, but few were as deified or vilified in their lifetime as the 7th President of the United States. This is History versus Andrew Jackson.
Order. What were we? Ah, yes. Mr. Jackson, you stand accused of degrading the office of the presidency. causing financial collapse and wanton cruelty against American Indians. How do you plead?
Now, Your Honor, I am not a big city lawyer, but I do know a few things. And I know that President Jackson was a self-made frontiersman, a great general, a real man of the people. Your Honor, this man of the people was a gambler, a drunk, and a brawler. Why, I've heard it said that he would fight at the drop of a hat and then drop the hat himself. I ask you, was such a man fit for the most distinguished office in the nation? Can we forget the debacle of his inauguration? Who ever heard of inviting a drunken mob into the White House? It took ages to get the upholstery clean. That drunken mob, sir, was the American people, and they deserve to celebrate their victory.
Order, order. Now, did this celebration have pie?
Very well. Mr. Jackson, is it not the case that immediately upon assuming office, you introduced the spoils system, replacing hundreds of perfectly good federal employees with incompetent party loyalists? Your Honor, the president did no such thing. He tried to institute rotation in office to avoid any profiteering or funny business. It was the rest of the party who insisted on giving posts to their lackeys. But Mr. Jackson complied, did he not? Now, see here. Moving on. Mr. Jackson, did you not help to cause the financial panic of 1837 and the ensuing economic depression with your obsessive war against the Bank of the United States? Was not vetoing its reauthorization, as you did in 1832, an act of irresponsible populist pandering that made no economic sense? Your Honor, the gentleman has quite the imagination. That bank was just a way for rich Yanks to get richer. And all that money panic was caused when British banks raised interest rates and cut lending. To blame it on the president is preposterous, I say. But if Mr. Jackson had not destroyed the national bank, it would have been able to lend to farmers and businesses when other credit dried up, would it not?
This is all highly speculative. Can we move on?
Certainly, Your Honor. We now come to Mr. Jackson's most terrible offense, forcing entire tribes out of their native lands via the Indian Removal Act. I resent that accusation, sir. The U.S. of A. bought that land from the Indians fair and square. Do you call coercion and threats by a nation with a far more powerful army fair and square? Or signing a treaty for removing the Cherokee with a small group that didn't include their actual leaders? They didn't even have time to properly supply themselves before the army came and forced them to march the Trail of Tears. Now hold on a minute. This was all Van Buren's doing after President Jackson left office. But Mr. Jackson laid the groundwork and made sure the treaty was ratified. All President Van Buren had to do afterwards was enforce it. Look here, Your Honor. Our government's been purchasing Indian land since the beginning, and my client was negotiating these deals even before he was president. President Jackson truly believed it was best for the Indians to get compensated for their land and move out west, where there was plenty of space for them to keep living the way they were accustomed, rather than stick around and keep butting heads with the white settlers, some of whom, I remind our court, wanted to exterminate them outright. It was a different time. And yet, even in this different time, there were many in Congress and even the Supreme Court who saw how wrong the Removal Act was and loudly opposed it, were there not? My client was under a great deal of pressure. I say, do you think it's easy governing such a huge country and keeping the Union together when states are fixing to nullify federal laws? President Jackson barely got South Carolina to back down over those import tariffs. And then Georgia had to go discover gold and start grabbing up Cherokee land. It was either get the Indians to move or get in another fight with a state government. So you admit that Mr. Jackson sacrificed moral principles to achieve some political goals. I do declare, show me one leader who hasn't.
As societies change and morals evolve, yesterday's hero may become tomorrow's villain, or vice versa. History may be past, but our understanding of it is always on trial.